So suit up and shake some bees. So the big thing about suiting up, I mean, they're not going to be super aggressive at this time because they don't know that this is their hive yet. So it's when they're protecting their hive they get real aggressive, but it's still relatively dangerous if you get stung in the eye. So definitely lease. So these packages come with there's a queen cage, and then there's the circular sugar syrup canister, and you have to pry out the canister and pry up the. We'll take the queen cage out first, and we'll set her in first, and then we'll get the canister out, and then we'll shake all the workers into the hive. And sometimes they come with a cork that you have to pierce, but you have to be really careful not to pierce the queen, obviously. These actually come with a candy cork that they'll eat through, so you don't actually have to, so you can just set the queen cage in. Pull this little metal piece off to expose the candy cork. Okay. And she's definitely in there. She's about, I would say, almost maybe like 50% bigger than the others, than the workers. Yeah, she's definitely lively. So, you think you should pierce a little bit of it, or you think they'll eat their way out? No, they'll eat their way out. Okay. So we're just gonna stick her in, and they'll eat their way out. Wow, it's heavy.
Yeah.
Thing is heavy.
We'll just set that to the side.
I guess.
I'll let you shake your bees in.
I'm gonna set this on the other side. There. I'm gonna crush these guys. Alright, guys.
About the same as mine?
Yeah. We definitely want to stick. I don't know how much more we're going to get.
Yeah, probably.
And that's a lot of them. So what do you think?
Good.
A little tap on the ground here. Yeah, that's most of them. I'm gonna let the rest of them sit over here next to the entrance. I hate doing that, I really do. I think it's just horrible, but unfortunately we can't get them to fit. And now the hard part is getting these guys out of the way. You get the bee brush. Yeah. Come on, guys. Not a good place to hang out. Great. So
about these, the top bars are really light.
Yeah.
So even if it fell on the bees, it
probably wouldn't kill them.
No.
Do we have one more?
That was it.
No, that was it. All right. So that's pretty good. I don't know if you want to brush. I can start putting the top on, or vice versa. I can brush if you want to. If you want to put the.
I guess these aren't space in here.
Yeah, I mean it'd be nice to get it right, but
Pretty close.
close enough. That looks pretty good. You want to throw that? Yeah, that's the cover. And there's the with the insulation in there. I'll try to get them off the. Which side you want to start with?
Looks like there's a lot less on this side, so.
Yeah.
Move it in there.
This would probably be where smoke would be nice.
They should move. I can see them.
In there.
One in the way yet. How's that side?
Yeah, that looks okay. There might be one or two squished in there, but I think I don't think that's going to squish them against the bars because it's pretty. It'll move.
Right.
You know, it's soft, so that cloth is pretty soft. Oop, come on, guy.
Is this flush or does it go over?
No, it goes over. Yeah.
I can see the other side. So.
Yep. Perfect. That's one down. So this is the first box that we emptied out, and you can see there's just not a lot of bees left in it. And there's still few, but there's a lot less than the one we did a little bit later. So they're eventually migrating their way out of the boxes and hopefully getting into the hives. The rationale for the shelter I made for the beehives is I wanted to have a shelter so the hives didn't get wet, so the wood wouldn't rot, and also it would keep snow off the hives, so that way snow couldn't build up around the entrance, blocking the entrances, and the bees wouldn't have to work quite as hard to maintain the proper temperature and humidity. Also, I installed a windbreak on the north and west sides, faced the hives southeast, so that way the bees would get the morning sun, and then also the entrances won't get baked in the afternoon. I put in some level cinder blocks at the base, and the cinder blocks make the hives high enough that mice can't get in, and also high enough that when skunks and possums try to bang on the hive to get the bees to come out so they can eat them, it exposes the fleshy area of their stomach, and then they get stung, and they don't particularly like that and hopefully won't come back. Also, the gravel floor and the level blocks underneath make it nice, so I don't have to worry about trimming grass and weeds all around the hive, making it more likely to agitate them and also getting yourself stung in the process. So the bees have been in for a week now, and they've done quite a bit of work over the course of a week. You can see they're pretty active here at the entrance, coming in and out with pollen and nectar. And I have the entrance reduced there with an entrance reducer. Basically, the idea is their numbers aren't quite at full strength yet, and that's going to take a while for the brood to get going. So they're not big enough to be able to protect a large opening. So I've reduced the opening, at least for the time being. At some point, when it gets to the point where it seems like there's a traffic jam at the opening, I will open it up further. And in the wintertime, I'll flip that up so it becomes a mouse guard. But as you can see, you'll see some of the bees as they're coming in will come in with pollen on their legs, which is kind of cool. One of the things that's frustrating for a new beekeeper is everything that you read, everything that you research, you hear opposite opinions on just about everything. You should feed, you shouldn't feed, you should feed this way, you should feed that way. It's really very confusing, and there really isn't a lot of consensus. For example, I have top bar hives here. This is actually a warre top bar hive, and there are no frames, and there's no foundation. All there are these little bars, and there's kind of like a V shape, and the bees build their comb right off of that. And everywhere I read said, oh, you've got to put wax on them. You've got to put wax on them. Well, I just never got around to putting any wax on them, and they've had no trouble building right off the bars. And my thinking is that if they're using their own wax to build off the bars, it's probably going to be stronger than building off something that's already there. So that's another thing is, you know, some of these things you just sort of have to try for yourself as opposed to just always relying on what the books say. So I did make a mistake when earlier in the video you'll see me put the feeder. I have a double jar feeder, and I put it underneath the top bars inside the hive. Now, the problem with that is it didn't take them long, and I was shocked at how quickly they built comb. I mean, they've already filled up half of one of the boxes, maybe a little more than half of a box with comb in just a week. So the issue is the feeder was in the way, and so the feeder really needed to come out. And the way you wanted to put a feeder in a warre hive if you're going to do that. And I'm not going to feed for very long because, to be honest with you, they've only taken about a quart of sugar syrup in the course of a week. So they're not particularly interested in it. And but if you're going to feed in a warre hive, this is the way that you do it. So I'm going to take off the. This is the roof. I'll move a little closer here so you can see how that's set up. So that's the cloth and the insulation, and basically the feeders are right here. And what you do is you take like canvas or burlap and you put this little square here, and you cut a little square inside, and then you put the feeders in here. So the nice thing is there's actually a viewing window, although I messed up again. I should have put the viewing window on the back. It's not a big deal. I sort of reach around to get to it. So the feeders are in here. The bees can't get to the feeder. They can still get to the feed, but they can't actually get to the feeder, which is nice. So that's the issue is I needed another box for that. So I had one extra box, but I didn't have another one. I didn't have another box for the other hive. So as you can see, the other hive, I've got their feed sitting right outside their entrance on cinder blocks. Now, issue being, of course, is that that tends to invite robbing, at least from what I've read. So that's not necessarily what you want to do. So ideally, I'd rather have them inside if you're going to feed. And my philosophy is that if you don't need to feed, don't feed. So I'm thinking that once they get established, if we've got 2 weeks on them, I'm probably going to pull the feed, let them go through till the end of the summer. And if their hives are heavy enough to get them through the winter, at the end of the summer, I'm not going to feed. But if it's a situation where they haven't stored up enough honey to get through the winter, I will have to feed towards the end of the summer so they can build up some stores to get them through the winter. So I'm hoping that they'll be active and busy enough to build up enough honey. So after this next week, I'll pull the feeders away, and I hopefully never, ever, ever have to give them sugar syrup again, because I think it's absolutely horrible to feed these poor bees sugar syrup.